Coming soon to own on DVD. Some memories fade with time, but others last forever.
They call me Thumper.
For the first time on DVD,
Hello, little prince.
Little prince.
the timeless classic awakens.
Wake up. We have company.
Digitally restored to dazzling brilliance with 5.1 surround sound. Walt Disney's Bambi, the special edition. Experience the wonder. March 2005. Now available to own on DVD and video.
I was a little boy growing up deep in the Ozark Mountains. Woods in all directions, as far as the eye could see.
They're sure fine ones, mister.
You got any hounds of your own, son?
I know what you want, son, but hunting dogs cost money.
Once in a lifetime, a novel inspires generations.
Sometimes I think God don't want me to have any.
But if you want God's help, you gotta meet him halfway.
I did what you said.
Walt Disney Home Entertainment is proud to present the beloved classic Where the Red Fern Grows, about the brave dogs
Atta girl.
who took one boy on a journey.
Can you handle this?
Yes, Grandpa.
I just want my children to be able to go to school so they can read and write.
Ozark Championship Coon Hunt to be held.
I'm collecting for the cash pool. Whoever wins, wins it.
And changed his family's fate forever.
No creature could live in my heart like those dogs of mine so long ago.
Starring Dabney Coleman and Dave Matthews in his film debut, Walt Disney Home Entertainment presents the award-winning story Where the Red Fern Grows.
I can still hear the wind in the trees. I hope to go back one day in that valley by the river where the red fern grows.
Coming to Disney DVD and video December 21st. Coming soon to own on DVD.
There are a few pristine places left on Earth, and in each of them live people who continue a way of life in harmony with nature that has been passed down for thousands of years. What can we learn about our planet if we listen to the stories they have to tell and the wisdom they have to share?
Walt Disney Pictures invites you on an extraordinary journey to every corner of the world to discover the mysteries and the beauty of the place we call home. Sacred Planet, narrated by Robert Redford. Coming soon to Disney DVD.
desert, they talk of a wild horse who rules the sky. He gallops a field of stars, leaving only to find the finest mares. They say his sons are born black as night and run with the wind, with fire in their hearts. Many are afraid. They use talismans to keep him away. They put black colts to death. But Sheikh Abu Ben Ishaq had no fear of this phantom stallion. He knew he had the perfect match. He wanted the stallion's bloodlines in his herds. As war blew across the desert, everything changed. Some sent their loved ones to safety. They watched their worlds transform. They saw their fortunes scatter across the sands. They saw their dreams wither and die. Many thought all was lost. Nothing left to believe in. No reason to hold on. But destiny follows its own mysterious road, bringing surprise and change, and sometimes hope.
we did your sort of basic talent search for our lead character, and the one thing that I do know about large format is you can't cheat. And when I say cheat, I mean it's very difficult to have a double play any of the roles because it's so huge and it's so clear that you can see immediately that it's a double. We really needed somebody who was experienced, not just someone who had been around horses, but somebody who could really ride.
Once we got the go, I hired a casting person in New York, hired a casting person in London, and 2 casting people in South Africa. So this search was going on all these different places.
So we were really going to riding academies and checking every corner of the equestrian world to try and find someone who fit this character.
When I first met with Disney after I'd scouted here in South Africa and went back to Los Angeles, and I said, look, we need to have the girl 4 weeks before we start shooting because she's got to build up a relationship with the animals, and that'll take 4 weeks. She's got to be a rider, and we've got to do some very specific things riding, and of course the clock started ticking and we're getting closer and we hadn't found her, and then suddenly she emerged.
My friend's mom was looking on the internet for filming lessons for him.
And she came across with this ad that it was about this movie.
They were looking for a 9 to 11-year-old Middle Eastern descent girl who rides really well.
They just immediately thought about Biana.
And they said, oh my gosh, this is Biana. So they phoned us up, and it was a Friday. They said, can we go to your horseback riding lesson tomorrow? Because I usually have one. We said, oh yeah, sure. It doesn't whatever, do anything you want. We didn't think it was going to happen.
The next day, they went to see her at her horseback riding class, and they took a video. The boy, her friend, is the one that mainly handled the camera, and they took a lot of, just mostly probably about 40 minutes or so of her riding.
And I did just basically some circles and a lot of dressage and flat work. And then another time I did an interview of how old I was and basic facts about me. My name is Biana and this is my horse, Buddy. I want to be in Black Stallion too because I've always wanted to be an actress when I'm older. And my mom's friend, he's an editor, so we asked him to help us, and he put all these credits and everything.
And they sent it. Of course, I never thought that anything will happen. I just thought we're never going to hear from these people.
I remember the evening we were there in my office, and the first tape came in, and right away we perked up. Hey, wait a minute. You could see she rode well and was, from a distance, was a very cute, pretty girl. 2 minutes after we saw the tape, we were calling her family up and saying, do you have a fax number? We want to send you some scenes for Biana to work on, and then find somebody, the same person that taped you, and tape yourself doing these scenes.
And at that point, I just thought somebody is joking. Somebody's just playing a big joke on us, and I don't like it.
And then we held our fingers crossed until the next tape came in. And the tape was terrific. I mean, not as good as she is now, but good enough to know that we had something.
He can beat Kazir, Papa. I know it. He can win.
It was difficult for me because I have never in my life before cast anybody that I haven't actually met, and I had already come here for pre-production, and so I only saw photographs and videotape, and then what I did is I put an acting coach with her to see what he felt, somebody that I'd worked with on Free Willy, a guy called Kevin McDermott, who's a wonderful children's acting coach, and I just said to Kevin, look, you have to tell me in 3 hours whether this girl has got it in her because I've never met her, and of course he was enchanted with her.
And the next thing we knew was be ready to come to LA and ready to pack to go to South Africa.
And I think I started realizing that something was really happening when Simon called just the day before we flew to LA.
It happened in 2-3 weeks. It was really fast.
I don't know what's happening to our lives. We were just normal, regular people, doing our thing, and here we are.
this project, the Young Black Stallion, is being shot here in southern Africa. It started out in Namibia, and we will then go on and shoot in Drakensberg. It's a very alpine setting, sort of high mountains up to, I think, 10, 11,000 feet.
I mean, initially we tried to do the film, as much of it in South Africa as we possibly could.
When Simon went up there to have a look at it, he wasn't happy with it. And he said, Namibia, got to come and have a look in Namibia. And obviously when he saw what we've shown him here, he just fell in love with it immediately.
And then it seemed like, having seen Namibia, I figured, well, why can't we just move it there? It's always such a wonderful pleasure to come back here and find new things. None of the places we've used on this picture have been used before, certainly never on film. So our location manager spent many hours on the road alone, looking, searching, photographing. And Simon too. I mean, Simon, every moment he gets off, he's out there and he's 4x4, scouting locations. I think what we've come up with is just fabulous.
Namibia is amazing. The Namib Desert is absolutely the oldest desert in the world, and you definitely get a feel when you're out there in the middle of the dunes that you're in someplace special.
The locations were an obvious challenge. Finding locations that satisfied the format.
The fact that it's a big format film created a couple of new challenges for me that I'd never dealt with in the desert. That it just sees every little thing. It's like it sees around corners, you know?
But that's the biggest thing about it, is that you just see, well, double. The scale of the format makes you do things better, in more detail, and look more carefully at how you're going to do things as opposed to being able to cheat a little. Everything is huge. I mean, you imagine little things on a 35mm suddenly become 3 times the size of them. And such depth, trying to hide enemies, telephone poles, roads, tracks in the sand, miles away.
Most of our locations are all 4x4 locations, and our tracks are not 4x4 tracks. You know, what made it difficult, I think, for the technical crew on this film as well, is the fact of having to take your truck up to a certain point, then take all the equipment out and load it on a smaller 4x4 vehicle. But at some locations, we had to cart all our equipment on smaller 4x4 vehicles, 9 kilometers from the base camp is, from where your water source is, from where everything is. Everything had to be carted in.
One of the real interesting challenges on this film has been bringing stuff in from everywhere, from all points on the globe. We had to drive, for example, our grip equipment from Cape Town up here to Namibia. That's a 2.5-day drive. And when you start talking about distances like that, you know, you're talking days to get from here to there. And so you have to build that into the schedule.
The vehicles have taken a pounding, very little in the way of paved roads, and initially they were remote, tough. But the biggest challenge on this picture has been the weather, the heat. You get out to the set and before you know it, it's up to 45 or 47 Celsius.
Which is about 114, 115 degrees Fahrenheit.
And it's tough to work 12, 14 hours a day when you're just perspiring more than you can in fact put into yourself.
You read about it and you know what's coming, but to be there and experience it firsthand is really, really something. So that's been a challenge. This film is being made by a crew of people from all around the world. We've got Australians, we've got South Africans, we've got people from the UK, we've got Americans, Canadians. I mean, across the board, it's a pretty eclectic bunch.
Gee! No 2 pictures are the same, ever. And this one certainly proves that. It's been a new experience. On many levels, on every level. We've all learned an enormous amount from this experience.
You know, I was telling a friend that I was coming here and he'd been all over Africa, and he said, "You're so lucky." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, it's one of the best parts of Africa." We're at the Casbah set, or Ishak's compound, and in the story, this is the place where young Nira comes home. So we've got interiors, we've got exteriors, and because we're on a pretty tight schedule, while we're filming the outside, on the inside, people are painting walls and dressing it to look spectacular.
There was a fair amount of work in creating that because it was not an ideal location, quite spectacular, but the logistics of moving vehicles in and out there and creating, you know, roads where there shouldn't be roads and stuff like that. So, but it worked very well in the end, but it was very, very difficult.
We came with a core crew from Cape Town. We started off with 7 or 8 carpenters and built up to close to 20, and total crew complement on construction was just under 100. The area we're working in is the flood valley or flood plain of the Swakop River, which I think only has water runs every 10 years or more.
When we started here, there was absolutely no water. The only water that exists on the farm is a well that they've dug, and they can get about 1,000 litres a day out of that. And we needed 20,000 litres for all the plastering that was needed to get done on that. We had to cart the water in with water trucks, 10,000 litre water trucks, every day for them to do their build down here. All the power was brought in. We had telephone lines put in here.
Logistically, it's been quite a tough build. There's not a lot of timber available here. Hardware's difficult to get. We've had to bring a lot of stuff in from South Africa. It's been quite an unusual construction method. It's something of an experiment. It's a sandbag construction, as you see here, using a very light timber frame and lattice that holds the sandbags. It gets chicken wired, but there's a lot of labor involved because all the sandbags have to be filled individually. My estimate is that there are about 50,000 sandbags in here, and that's only this level and half of that level. Well, the first thing I'll take home is never build sets with sandbags. But I think it's looking pretty good. I'm quite proud of it. But I always get tremendous satisfaction out of seeing a project through from start to finish, from the drawings that we saw here and seeing the building. When you look across the field, it looks just like the drawings we started with.
Oh, Nira.
guys run straight towards camera, okay?
Well, I wanted to make another Black Stallion movie. Then I got very interested in the idea of doing a dramatic film in large format. Then I thought of marrying the two ideas. Why not make one of the very first dramatic large format movies be a Black Stallion movie, a film for the entire family.
The whole goal here was to emotionally connect with the audience with a story, rather than just with a documentary subject like an elephant or a whale or a mountain or a place. To actually tell a story that the audience gets connected with and has the same kind of experience they have when they see a 35mm movie, but on this giant canvas that is able to give you those incredible vistas that lend itself so well to large format. This really fit what I was looking for as far as a short story that could be told on the big screen.
That's it, beautiful. Now close towards him again. Very good, Diana, well done.
Then we found Simon Windsor, who had done Free Willy and was a very enthusiastic director, and it all came together with those elements.
It's a good way to take the genre because the first film established such a high benchmark, certainly for horse movies. It's such a classic, The Black Stallion, and so I think to come back with this in the more sort of classic sense of the first one and to show it in a completely different way, I think was a great concept.
Well, certainly the large format is the ultimate film format for capturing large-scale environment and bigger-than-life events. You know, we try to take them someplace they haven't been before. Most IMAX films, you take a camera and you put the camera in front of things. And on this film, we're taking things and we're putting them in front of a camera. And that essentially sums up what we're trying to do here. It is, however, a bit more of a challenge to capture the intimacy, just because the scale of the screen competes so much.
And all over the screen, there's so much to see. There's so much detail. There's an explosion of detail. The thing about conventional 35 film is that you can get very intimate. You can get in close, you know. You can really get close. Well, you can't with this.
Subjects that are photographed too close can be overwhelming, you know, just overpowering. Instead of intimate, they become something very different.
If you do a close-up, somebody's nose is going to be 6 stories high.
Compositionally, it's quite different, and because the camera sees such a huge area, it's very hard to isolate characters in dialogue scenes and stuff, so you have to tend to stage them in a slightly more theatrical way. The audience subliminally take in the whole screen, but there's a part of the screen that we call the sweet spot, which is where basically the audience sees, which is the sort of center and lower half of the screen. And if you place people on the left and the right in the extreme areas, it becomes a bit like a tennis match, so you have to be a bit careful.
So everything has to be shot in proscenium, and you sort of have to figure that out. The problem is that in proscenium, everyone lines up sort of in a line, like on a stage. We as a film audience aren't really used to that.
You could have been hurt.
No, he wouldn't hurt me.
Sometimes you might decide to do a scene in one shot and it doesn't quite work, so you just do a quick close-up of somebody and boom, the whole scene will go together seamlessly. You can't do that in this format. So quite often you have to do long, long takes.
I won't allow it. I forbid it.
You have to help me. What? Are you joking? Tell me you're joking.
Very good cut, very good. Very good work, very good work. We did that.
These are all considerations, very serious considerations that have to be made in order to make the images as watchable as you can for an audience, because there are a number of artifacts that we get with large format, which make it very unpleasant for many people in the audience. Specifically, fast motion in the frame creates a very unpleasant strobing that becomes very unwatchable.
It's pretty nice, isn't it?
That's a nice piece.
The biggest problem that we had was really the noise of the cameras. The cameras are incredibly noisy.
Very
very still, everyone.
Horrifyingly loud. No, it is really, really loud. Probably about 4 times the loudness of a normal 35mm camera, which doesn't carry any blimp or any soundproofing on it.
That's also a reason that there haven't been many, if any, dialogue stories told in large format, because it's very hard to do sync sound.
And it's hard for the actors to get used to working with the camera noise because they tend to speak over it rather than just still play a scene like we're talking now.
At first, I was speaking loudly so that I'm trying to reach the cheap seats. And Simon would say, no, bring it down. It's an intimate scene. Don't let the noise distract you. And so finally, and very quickly, I guess, actually, you get used to it.
The whole film has to be post-sunk looped.
So I'm giving them a guide track as to what actually happened on the night. So I only do 1 or 2 takes of it. And if time is available, I'll do a wild track for them so that they'll be able to use the wild track on the original piece of film.
Go.
The desert has been the studio. The desert's probably the best location for recording sound, and then we bring the camera along.
The reality is that if this is going to continue, which I think it will, the camera design needs to start from the ground up as opposed to taking existing equipment and then trying to sound dampen it. That has yet to happen in large format, but I think it will, and I think it'll be great for all of us.
We gotta get eating. Have faith, mother. And set. And action.
Reed Smoot, who's done 16 of these films, he's our cameraman. He's been a great help in that department because I'm a new boy in this format, although I've been directing a long time. It is quite different.
By the same token, we've explored many things that Simon has brought from a more traditional approach to filmmaking, which I think there's going to be a really nice dovetailing of the film craft.
I've certainly learned a lot on this. I think I'd certainly stage a few scenes differently. Yeah, I'd take on another one. I'm not sure that I want to do it straight off, but...
Cut!
How's that? Very nice. Yeah.
Oh.
His heart is full of fire in it, like the devil, Shaitan.
Whoa. He can beat Kazir, Grandpa. I know it. He can win. He really can.
And these aren't trained movie horses. These are horses that we had to hire in South Africa locally. And normally on a film you buy the horses and you train them, but we weren't able to do that. And because there just weren't the horses here, and the challenges of bringing horses from all over the world in itself were just too big for this movie.
This horse is purebred Arabian, like all the horses on the show are. And they're supplied by Jack and Farnie Maritz from Uppington in South Africa. We've got a wonderful string of horses there. We've been very lucky to actually find these horses for this job, because in South Africa there's not a lot of Arabians, but these particular horses have got a lot of quality about them. As you can see, they're nice.
When they're trained to be showed as Arabs, they're trained to be frisky and all this and all that. Well, you basically have to take all that away and start again so that they totally trust him, and so that he can work from here to these rocks away out of the camera range, and that they'll still be watching the signals he's giving with his coach whip. And it's interesting to watch the way the horses developed as they built up a trust in him.
He comes to a new country, and they give him 15 horses, and he plays with them for a few minutes, and now he can tell this one is trainable, that one is forget it, and pretty soon he's got them doing these things. I mean, I don't know how he does it. I talked to him one day about it. How do you get a horse to, when you flick your whip, to rear up?
It's building blocks. It's a cross between training a circus horse and a sheepdog, basically. A movie horse work is a lot different to any other type of horse work. You basically start by getting the horse's focus, and you start by tapping him on the leg and getting him to paw the ground, and you build from there. Horses are a body language communicator. So therefore, I communicate with my body to the horse, and he understands what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's my body that does it, you know.
Oh.
You know, not voice command. It's body command, right? And that's how horses talk to each other. You've got to know how to read the horse to say what he's saying to you, to know, right? Okay, this is a good time to ask him something, or a good time to show him something, right? And you do that through being observant of their body language. But the thing is, it's not about being trick horses. It's about having the ability to teach these animals to act. And the way you do that is to give them a lot of confidence, be brave, right, and love their work. Right. They have to like what they're doing, right? Because if they don't, they're going to run away. If you don't get them liking their job, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, I've worked with probably the best in the world in that area, and he's sort of up there with them. He's had a big challenge in that he didn't have a long time to train the horses, and he probably had half the amount of time than he would normally get on a film. This was just purely because we were working to a release date, and so he's really had to make do with what he could get. So he's done a fantastic job.
Set. Action.
Well, this horse here, for instance, has had about 35 days training. Most of these horses have got between 30 and 40 days handled on them. 30 days is not a lot. From the beginning of the production through, and actually while we're training in production too, which has been, with this particular film, really difficult. To keep the horses trained, keep them going, because they've got to be worked every day. And then when you're on set working with other horses, and you know, your staff gets a bit thin and all that sort of thing. So yeah, they've missed out a fair bit, but we're now back on course, and we're looking pretty good.
The other challenge, of course, is that normally you're working with grown-up horses, but in this case, the lead for most of the film is a 6-month-old colt, and that's terribly hard to just maintain the concentration of such a young horse. And there's some pretty specific stuff that's been done.
Oh, look at that!
This film has been a particular challenge for the horse trainers because of the distances that have been required to achieve the behaviors. Because of the size of the frame, it's necessary to keep them much further back than they would normally be.
Heath has to be way off to the side where he's in frame. And the first bike Stallion, was a regular 35mm frame, and Corky Randall, our trainer, was just barely off screen, and with his whips and commands.
Sometimes he works off a horseback, and it's called a mirrored image, where they'll ride side by side and they'll be 30 yards apart, and the horse will do exactly the same as he does on his horse. And it's quite complex and fascinating to watch.
These guys are superb. I mean, they're just, I don't think I've ever seen handlers that are so capable of working at such a distance. I mean, it's very difficult.
I don't pretend to be an expert on horse training. You hire the best guy, and somehow magic happens and the horses come ready to do certain things.
In a country far across the sea lived a big black horse. He had a long tail, a long mane, and long legs. His head was small, and so were his ears, but his eyes were large and bright. He had always run wild and free. He had no name. He was just called Black. One day, some men caught him, blindfolded him, and tried to put him on a ship. They pulled him hard with long ropes and hit him with whips. Black became very angry. He rose high on his hind legs and pawed the air. Then he screamed and plunged forward, hitting one of the men with his hooves. The man fell to the ground and lay still. For a long while, the big black horse fought hard, but at last the men held him and managed to get him onto the ship. He was pulled into a small stall and tied. Then the door was firmly shut and bolted, and the ship steamed away. On the deck of the ship, red-haired Alec Ramsey was standing alone. His parents had sent him to visit his uncle in India, and now he was on his way home to the United States and back to school.
One evening, the air was hot and still. Heavy clouds blacked out the stars, and long streaks of lightning raced through the sky. When Alec went to the stall, the black had his head over the door. He was looking out to sea, and his nostrils were sniffing the air. He turned, whistled when he saw Alec, then looked out to sea again. Suddenly, there was a crash louder than any of the others. The ship shook. Alec heard someone shout, "She's been struck! We're sinking! The ship is going down!" Fighting his way out of the crowd, huddled at the rail, Alec ran toward the stern of the ship. He could hear the black snorting and neighing. Alec opened the stall door and the horse came rushing out. For he had broken the rope that held him. The boy tried to get out of his way, but too late. As the big black horse plunged for an opening in the rail, he hit Alec's shoulder, knocking the boy into the sea with him. Alec felt the water close over his head. Alec's life jacket brought him quickly to the surface again. As he turned to swim back to the ship, an explosion shook the air, and he saw that the ship was sinking rapidly. Frantically, he looked around for a lifeboat, but there was none to be seen. Then, suddenly, he saw the black swimming close by. The broken rope still hung from the horse's halter. Without stopping to think, Alec grabbed hold of it. In another moment, he was being pulled through the stormy sea. When morning came, the storm had ended and the sea was quiet. Alec raised his head and looked about him. There in the distance was a white, sandy beach. Faster and faster swam the black, and soon he was on the beach, pulling Alec right up on the sand. He crossed the beach and climbed a hill. From where he stood, he could see all around. He was on a small island, mostly sandy, and with only a few trees, bushes, and patches of grass showing. Never had Alec ridden such a wonderful horse. He was as swift as the wind. Every day after that, Alec rode the black up and down the beach. Sometimes the horse would rear when Alec tried to mount him, but the boy would speak softly in his ear, and then the black would quiet down. Alec grew to love the black and to wonder how he could get him home. He wanted to keep him in a fine barn and take care of him. He wanted to ride him in the park and show him to his friends. But how would either of them ever get off this island? They had been on it for 19 days, and the weather was turning cold. That night, Alec put more wood on the fire he had been able to start to keep him warm. Then he crawled wearily into his shelter. Soon he was fast asleep. At the crest of the hill, Alec suddenly stopped. There below him was a ship anchored a few hundred yards off the island. Alec shouted for joy. "We're going home, Black!" yelled to his horse. "We're going home!" The sailors couldn't believe their eyes when they saw Alec, for he was a strange sight. His red hair was long and tangled, and his thin body, browned by the sun, was covered with only a few shreds of clothing. When Alec told the sailors how he had been pulled through the stormy sea by a big black horse, they thought he must be imagining things. But when he called the black, and the fiery horse came running down the hill to him, the sailors could no longer doubt his word. "He's too wild. We couldn't take him. We couldn't handle him," came the captain's answer. "But I can handle him," Alec pleaded. The black was still. His head turned toward the ship as if he understood what was going on. "Please," Alec said. "He saved my life. I can't leave him here alone. He'll die." "But how are you going to get him out there?" the captain asked, pointing to the anchored ship. "He can swim," Alec answered eagerly. "He'll follow me. I know he will." Suddenly, the black plunged into the water and began swimming, following the boy he loved. When they reached the big ship, the black was swimming close to the rowboat. "Good boy," Alec whispered proudly to him. When Alec was alongside his horse, he took a deep breath and sank below the surface. He swam underwater, trying to get beneath the black's stomach and come up on the other side of him. In that way, he would get the strap around his horse. But one of the black's hoofs struck him accidentally on the shoulder and he had to rise to the surface. He waited until the pain left his shoulder and then tried again. This time, he swam deeper, and when he came up on the other side of the black, he buckled the strap tight around the horse. Then he called to the sailors to start the engine that would raise the chain. Slowly, the black was lifted out of the water and high into the air. He thrashed his legs wildly in his fury, but at last he was safely on board the ship, and Alec was there to tell him that everything was all right. The captain of the ship gave the black a fine big stall, and Alec spent almost every hour with his horse. He gave him good things to eat, oats and bran and hay. Every day, too, he gave him an apple, for he'd found that the black loved apples just as much as he did. And Alec told him that within a few days they would reach New York City, where his mother and father would meet the ship. The captain had sent them a message by radio telling them that Alec was safe and on his way home. The message hadn't said, though, that he was bringing a horse home with him. Alec worried about this. What would his mother and father say when they saw the big horse? Would they let him keep him? He had already thought of a place to stable the black down the street from where he lived on Long Island, were an empty barn and a big field. "That'll be your home," he told the black, "and I'll take care of you." On the pier, Alec's mother and father were waiting for him. They all put their arms around one another and stayed that way a long, long time. After that, they turned to the black. "He's mine," Alec told them. They didn't say anything. They were afraid of the black. Alec told them not to be afraid, that the black was the most wonderful horse in the whole wide world, and he told them how the black had saved his life by pulling him through the terrible storm and onto the safe sandy beach. "I wouldn't be here now if it weren't for him. Please let me take him home. He's my horse forever and ever." So the big black horse now lives in the old barn not far from Alec's house. Alec works hard taking care of him and doing jobs after school so he could buy feed and apples for his horse. But he is very happy, and so is the black. They're together, and that's the way they had hoped it would be.
Ever wondered what it would be like to live life as a toon? Well, here's your chance. Jump online and straight into Toontown, where the city limits are as wide as your imagination. Make your own toon and play tons of games. Explore crazy new lands and help save Toontown from the evil cops. What are you waiting for? There's never been an online multiplayer interactive ever-changing toon-themed game like this before. Toontown. Are you toon enough?